and welcome to the channel for episode 2 in what is now officially, I guess, a series called History Hikes, where we go to abandoned industrial sites and along abandoned railroad grades in Pennsylvania. This episode takes us to Venango County, to a site along Bullion Run, about an hour and 3/4 north of where we are here in Pittsburgh, driving time. There's a great deal of narrative, historical background and so on in this video. And if you want to just fast forward to where we get to the furnace ruins, that comes at about 12 minutes and 40 seconds into the video, which is about 18.5 minutes long. So without further ado, I'll get out of the way and hope you have a good time watching this video. Oh, and I'll put links to a website belongs to alltrails.com in my notes here, where you can take a look at, and if you want to subscribe, you can download actually the trail maps to this hike. And also I want to sort of give you an advance apology. I'm still experimenting with my GoPro camera, and I was using a chest mount on the hike in, and you might the horizon, I think, is a little bit too low. So next time I'll elevate the camera a little bit more to give you some more of the woods and the sky and less of the trail. With that, I'll say again, have fun and come back and see us again soon. Well, we've made our exit off of Pennsylvania Route 8 north of from the exit on Interstate 80. And we got off at the Pennsylvania Route 308 exit, 308. We turned left. We came through the little village of Pearl with its one stop sign. And then right at the edge of that little village, at the Victory Township sign, we turned right onto Dennison Run Road. And we're on Dennison Run Road right now, and we have about a mile or two to go to the State Game Lands parking lot, where we will be starting our hike to the ruins of the Bullion Run iron furnace. Stop sign here at the crossroads with Bullion Road. And just on the other side of this stop sign in this intersection, the pavement ends and we go to a hard stand dirt and gravel road. And this Run Road keeps running straight ahead. We're going to turn right on DeWoody. Now we're coming to the end of DeWoody Road, which terminates in the State Game Lands parking lot. We will be hiking to the trail to the right as we're coming in here. Just to give a little perspective of where we are and where we're going coming out of this parking lot, the road that we came in on is just over the hood of my truck in the background. And I'll pan around, and there in the distance you can see the gateway to the service road that we will be following in, and then we'll just pan around. You get an idea for what these parking areas are like in State Game Lands. The usual signs at the entrances to publicly controlled, publicly owned, common, you might say, hunting lands in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Well, we're on our way, finally, after the logistics got taken care of, walking down the Hall Road toward the Bullion Run iron furnace ruins. The Bullion Run furnace was one of many furnaces that operated in Venango County in the middle of the 19th century. It operated between the early 1840s and went out of blast in 1859. It was a typical stone stump pyramid type furnace, and apparently was successful for the amount of time that it ran. Made a few hundred tons a year of pig iron. That's iron that was used in the forging of wrought iron. Could also be melted down in foundries and made into various castings. And this furnace might actually have, in fact it probably did, cast some basic commercial items right in the cast house at the furnace site. Pots, pans, skillets, griddles, fireplace backs, iron sheets that went in the back of a fireplace to help radiate heat out of the fireplace into the room, and maybe even furnace parts. I haven't been able to locate, and I don't believe there is any published record of the exact kinds of products that this furnace did produce. I'm going to experiment a little bit with the chest harness mount for the GoPro to see how well the hyper-stabe works in this configuration. Walking down a fairly even trail. I try to keep my gait as even as I can. And we're coming up to the junction here with the 2 or 3 trails that branch off of the service road, all together called the Kennerdale Trail. And we will be going to the Bullion Run iron furnace. The trail is very clearly blazed with the yellow dashes there. A single dash means continue straight ahead. A lot of hemlock here. Beautiful hemlock. Pennsylvania was one of the largest producers of iron in the colonial period and right up to the turn of the 20th century in the United States. We were blessed in western Pennsylvania and south central Pennsylvania with abundant resources of good iron ore that was easy to mine close to the surface, and in many cases it outcropped on hillsides. This furnace, the Bullion Run furnace, used local iron ore that was a part of the geology in the coal measures. This furnace, as did all the other ones that were in blast in the first half of the 19th century, in this part of Pennsylvania anyway, used charcoal as its fuel to generate heat for the smelting process. And there would have been also a nearby limestone quarry to use as flux. Here's an interesting ruin for you. There's a old pine, looks like an old hardwood tree that has been really used for food sources for woodpeckers. But getting back to the story of making iron, they would have used limestone in their fluxing process. There was 3 parts of the what was called the burden in the iron furnace, in sort of stacked in the inside the furnace in like in layers. Charcoal for fuel, iron ore, and limestone, not necessarily in that order. Generally charcoal was the bottom of the 3. And as the heat intensified toward the bottom of the stack, this all started to settle. As the iron ore and the limestone broke down and liquefied, that would begin to settle, and then as they were drawing the slag, which was the molten limestone carrying the impurities from the iron ore, and then the more or less pure molten iron, as that would be drawn out into the casting house, they would dump fresh loads of raw material into the top of the furnace. And it was a continuous process. It continued day and night until orders had been filled and the campaign, as they called it, was over. And this furnace again was in blast for roughly 20 years. And like many of the charcoal furnaces throughout the central and western Pennsylvania iron fields, they went out of blast right before the Civil War. And only a few of them went back into blast during the Civil War and survived. And very, very few survived to the end of the 19th century. But there were still charcoal iron furnaces operating in this part of the state of Pennsylvania into the 1920s before they finally gave up the ghost. Going off to the left, and the iron furnace trail down to the right. You hear that? Do you hear that? That is the sound of the woods. When you're out here all by yourself, wonderful, wonderful. I don't get out to do this enough. I have a feeling that that might have been the blowing arch where the blast went into through what they call a nozzle called a tweer into the bottom of the furnace to provide the blast of air that made the charcoal burn hot enough to melt the iron in the limestone. And there's a little bit of a less distorted view of the furnace from the trail. This furnace, of course, is in ruins. The opposite side of it was forced to collapse by an ice gorge, a big wedge of ice that got down inside the furnace back in the late 1950s. I'll go down there and see if we can get up close to it. But since the last person was here with cameras and YouTubing and things like that, why, looks like the park people have come in, or the trail people have come in and put a fence around it to inhibit access for obvious reasons. This furnace is in an advanced state of decay and people climbing on it and so on. There's a hazard that rocks could fall off. We're looking into what I'm certain is the tweer arch, because deep inside in the shadows you can see the recess within the arch for where the tweer would have gone into the bosch, which is the widest part of the furnace. It's where the heat was the hottest and where the molten iron and slag collected to be drained off below. And there's the sunny side on the west side looking east, with beautiful Bullion Run running past. You can see how the whole front half of the furnace has just been sliced off and is gone. And of course the creek continues to undermine, and it's not going to be long until this whole thing just collapses out into the stream. It's a shame, but sic transit gloria mundi. Well, the shadows are starting to lengthen in here, but I wanted to give you a good closer Boy, I'm out of breath. View from up close to this back side of this furnace. This is probably the tweer arch side where the water wheel and the bellows that provided the blast of air to make the charcoal burn very hot was positioned. There's a trace of a mill race. I don't know if you can see it beyond the orange tape hanging on the fence there, but there's a ditch that runs right through and on downstream. That would be the tail race. Water would have come off the stream upstream and been diverted under the water wheel, which would have been probably right in front of me, and then back out into the stream via this ditch that is still pretty apparent, even though it's been starting to fill in with vegetation and things. I'll just give you a little bit of perspective. This footing is not so sure here, so you'll definitely want to bring a hiking stick or a trekking pole with you for balance. This is obviously the steep climb down to the furnace itself, but the trail itself is footing is a little bit unstable in places too. So you'll want to make sure that you bring good boots, good ankle support, and a walking stick would be good too. Well, I hope you enjoyed this hike back to the Bullion iron furnace ruins here in Venango County with me today. If you like this hike, well, please like it with clicking the thumbs up icon, and comment below. And in your comments, let us know what you think, and any ideas you might have for future hikes to abandoned railroad grades or other abandoned industrial sites. Thanks. We are very fortunate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to have a large number of acres of forested public hunting lands maintained by the state, paid for primarily out of nothing but our hunting license fees and fishing fees. Of course, that goes toward the lakes and the waterways. But we have a wonderful system of state forests dating back to the first decades of the 20th century. One of the first states in the country to have that kind of a thing. We are so fortunate. I've traveled all over the United States, and you go out west and everything that isn't federal land is private property. There's so much private property. In Texas, if you want to hunt deer or any kind of game, you have to rent land, rent the privilege from some private landowner. Here in Pittsburgh, or in Pennsylvania, we have state game lands, and they're all over, thousands and thousands of acres of rich game lands. It's just a special thing, and I wanted to stop by this sign and talk about that for people who aren't familiar with the way things work with public lands. Do you see them? Do you hear the noise? Do you hear the noise they're making? Do you see the little ripples where they come up to the surface? I don't know if they're turtles or they're frogs. I can't get close enough to see without startling them, but you can see the rings emanating out from there. Oh, they're frogs. Look at them. They're swimming. There's one right there swimming. Yeah, they're frogs. And yeah, look at them.